Okay, so this is day 4 of Mishlei chapter 21, pesukim 25 and 26. And we have an agenda today, twofold agenda. Agenda number 1 is to try to wrap up our understanding centered around Rabbeinu Yonah, but I'm fine as long as we just arrive at like some solidified understanding. And then I want to reserve at least the last 15 minutes to do practicality about overcoming laziness from the pasuk. And again, the goal is not to like solve laziness in one day. The goal is to just like see what strategies about overcoming laziness we can get from the pasuk. Okay. So let's do quick review of the major insights from yesterday. So first we'll read the pasuk. Tavas atel temisenu ki me'anu yadav lazos. The desire of the lazy person will kill him because his hands refuse to act. Kol hayom hisave ta'ava v'tzadik yitin v'lo yachsoch. All day long he will cultivate desire, or he'll intensely desire. And the tzaddik will give and not hold back. Okay, so after you finish that bite, Sean, if you don't mind reiterating your horseshoe theory of laziness and the atzel, the lazy person, and then the lates. And because Ellie, you weren't here for the lates, so lates is someone who is Mishlei says lates is someone who is haughty and malicious. And there's a whole personality that came from that, but you'll get some of it from what Sean is saying. Yeah, okay. Go ahead, Sean.
So I'll start with the lates because that's just chronologically how we...
Yeah. Oh, wait, hold on. We're forgetting one important thing. This is a horseshoe. Okay. For you city boys. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so we started off the discussion of the lates by realizing that, or at least I had started by realizing that it related to the previous pasuk, which was that he's not guarding his mouth or his in terms of what he's saying and what he's eating, right?
Right.
And we said that like there's a sense of indulgence there, right? And an indulgence comes from like a sense of instant gratification. And in order to do that, you need to silence certain parts of yourself that is telling you that this is not the right thing to do. Right. That is trying to keep you in line with the proper path. Yeah. Right. So what I wanted to suggest in terms of both the lates and the atzel is that they both have a desire towards instant gratification, right? And that's what starts them, leading them on their path. So if you slice a horseshoe in half, right? So the midpoint, right, is where they're both starting, which is this instant gratification. And there's 2 ways in which a person can achieve instant gratification, right? So there's either the creation of a positive, right? Because both of them want comfort and the creation of a positive within themselves in a very quick and instantaneous manner. Yeah. So there's 2 ways to do that. One way is to do actions that are creating a positive within you, saying whatever you want to say, eating whatever you want, drinking whatever you want. Very positive things that are going to create that positive within you.
And just to be clear, positive is not like good. Positive meaning positive. You're seeking a perceived benefit.
Something that the person themselves feels a positive, whether or not it's unobjective.
Right.
Okay. So that's one route. That's the route of the lates. Yeah. Right. And then there's the other route, which is you can create a net positive within you also by removing negatives. Right. Okay. And the reality is that any action in which a person like does in order to like achieve something and to like be generative for themselves, that there is some initial investment of energy, right? And that initial investment of energy is going to be difficult and it's going to be painful. So because he's completely in an instant gratification mindset, he's going to be removing that pain or that in order to get a instant gratification of not having that pain. Okay. And then through that, when each person goes down their respective paths, so then they actually end up drifting farther and farther from each other because the
that's the outer part of the horseshoe.
Right. The lates is becoming uninhibited in terms of like going after certain things, and then from that he then needs to justify that he is pursuing all these things and not creating a positive within the system, just positives within himself. Right. And to do that, he needs to create this whole edifice and push down that part of himself that's telling him that what he's doing is wrong, and to mock that in others, and to just mock others so that he can be superior, so that he's therefore entitled to all these things. Right. That's where he gets the farthest from the atzel. Right. And the atzel gets the farthest from the lates when he he's going to hit his high where he's like just not engaging in anything because it's progressed to the point where like every single pain he's just restricting himself from in terms of like the instant pain of going towards something. But then at a certain point, because both of them are not really engaging in a productive way within society, the late is spending all of his money or doing whatever it is to get pleasures, and he's also bashing people in order to sustain this, which then is going to remove him from society. It's going to push him off from society because no one's going to want to be around a person who is vilifying them and attacking them, and so he's going to become part of the dregs of society because he's removing himself from it and he's not contributing. And the Atzel is also going to be because he's a leash and he's sucking off from everyone. He's not being generative or productive, and that's going to strain his relationships too in a different way, but it's also going to be a strain that's going to push him to also becoming a dragon. At the end, they're going to be in very similar results, having started from a similar place, but having taken two different paths.
Okay, good. I knew you could summarize it better than I could. That's very good. Okay, so that was the major insight from yesterday. And then that was like the first half hour of yesterday. And then the last 15 minutes, we were trying to figure out the major question, which is how does the tzaddik, what do we get from comparing the tzaddik to the Atzel, right? So Yeshua theorized that that the tzaddik differs in respect to all three fourths of the pasuk. So the desire of the Atzel will kill him, which we said means that he wants something, and the fact that he can't even get it is going to have him in a constant state of pain and conflict. Whereas the tzaddik has the opposite of that the tzaddik is able to give himself what he wants because there's no resistance. He has not habituated himself to seek ease and to avoid conflict. So he'll be able to pursue his desires whenever he wants. That corresponds to the first part. Ki anu yadav lasos, the lazy person has habituated his limbs to not act when he wants, so he can't even control his own actions. And that creates its own conflict. In other words, maybe I didn't say this as clear as I could have yesterday, but there's two layers of conflict with the Atzel. There's, I want this and I can't get it. And the not getting it gives me pain. But then there's the fact, why can't I get it? Because I can't make myself get it. And the inability to control your hands or your limbs, that creates its own pain. So there's the pain of not having what you desire, and then the pain of the impotence of laziness, you know. And the tzaddik also doesn't have that because he can snap into action whenever he wants because the benefits are real to him. He knows that if he contributes to the system, then ultimately it's going to benefit him in the long run, and also he gets enjoyment out of doing that in general. And
we were also saying that the tzaddik gives to himself.
It's giving to himself.
He wants to do certain things. And he doesn't let that the quality of the lace, which is the need for that, or to remove himself from that.
The lace or the Atzel?
The Atzel, that need to remove yourself from the initial pain. He doesn't let that prevent him from getting what he needs, so that he can then provide for himself and provide for others.
Correct. Yeah, and just to be realistic here, the tzaddik does have he will have the immediate pain. But he knows that the net benefit of pushing through that pain is going to be worthwhile, and so he'll be able to do that. I mean, like I'm just thinking of I don't know where the passage is, but there's one of the passages in Marcus Aurelius when he talks about about how to get himself out of bed, you know, and like it's very humbling to see someone like Marcus Aurelius talking about it, because Marcus Aurelius was definitely a tzaddik, by our standards. But like he's still like it's winter and it's like cozy in bed and like he needed to get out of it, so he experiences it, but like he has strategies to get himself out. Okay, then the kol hayom hisavatava, we said that the lazy person is in the state perpetually. He has many more desires. His desires are, this is where it's breaking down. What quality is this highlighting about the Atzel, and then how does the tzaddik contrast with this? The all day long part.
I think you had said yesterday that when a person can't get something, it's worse for them than when the person.
Correct. Thank you. So the pas pasalo and pas eno doma mishlei yishlo pas pasalo mishlei ainlo pas pasalo. So that's Chazal's statement that if you have access to bread, then your hunger is less. But if you don't have access to bread, then your hunger is more. Mm-hmm. So that Rabbeinu Yonah is the one who brought that in. So the fact that he can't, so let's just chain them together. So the lazy person wants something and is not getting it. That's pain number one, pain layer number one. Two, his inability to control himself to be able to get it is its own pain. And then pain number three is the fact that he no longer has bread in his basket, the fact that it's inaccessible, the inaccessibility generates its own pain. And the tzaddik is the opposite on all fronts, is he'll get the things he desires, and his desires will be moderated because he's a tzaddik. He can have control over his actions, and there's removal of the negative of impotence, but there's also a positive enjoyment of being able, like, to take any area that like you are skilled in, there's a certain pleasure in just being able to exercise that skill, like again, like the rolling up the sleeves and like, okay, I got this, So the tzaddik has that positive enjoyment. And then the tzaddik has bread in his basket. The tzaddik has the ability to get what he wants because he operates through chachma and through tzedek. So he's going to be better on all counts. Okay, this is what I wanted yesterday, right? So that's that was the seeds that Yoshua planted there. And it's different than the Rabbeinu Yonah. It's the same approach. Rabbeinu Yonah, we're going to see in a second, focuses more on the interaction with other people dimension of the tzaddik, not the interaction with his own desires, which is what I'd like to focus on, or what I was focusing on. Yeah, David?
Yeah, and just one other thing also from yesterday of the guy who doesn't ever do anything, just the hitavut tava coming from his never doing anything makes everything seem so much more accessible. And that will help build up more and more tavot versus the tzaddik will have what he desires will be much more grounded. Correct.
Yeah. So that the pas basalo and pas she'enu basalo problem will compound with the lazy person and not with the tzaddik. That's a good point. By the way, just to tie it into the pasuk that I had quoted on day one, maybe his avatava is by the Erev Rav was craving meat when they didn't have it. So that usage of his avatava of craving something that they can't have fits in with the usage in the Chumash. Yeah, sure.
Can I add just to like the pain that the Atzel is experiencing?
Yeah.
Which is, I think, when a person isn't actualizing or creating or generating things for himself.
Yeah.
Right. So then he engages in like a fantasy of like seeing himself. Like he doesn't think that he can get it, but then he like, in order to like get it in some sense, he engages in a fantasy of like having it, and like he'll. When you engage within fantasy, so then you're in a fantasy mindset, but reality is still always there, and reality is always going to poke its ugly head, and that's going to also contribute a lot to his pain.
Okay, that's a good point, right? So in other words, I think that actually, I think that fits in very well with the Kol Hayom part, right? So in other words, if the lazy person could easily like dissolve his desires, so then he wouldn't be in conflict at all, right? I mean, but the thing is he can't. And what's going to happen is because he wants the thing, he'll fantasize about himself having it. And anytime, the more conflict you have between the fantasy and the reality, then the more painful it'll be. And he'll be in a constant state of pain. And then I think this also like piggybacks off of David's point, which is his concept of what it means to obtain his desires is so unhinged from reality that the fantasies themselves will be more extreme, and that's going to create even more pain. Yeah. Oof. Bad situation. Yeah. I feel empathy. Okay. So let's quickly, so I'm content with the puzzle now. Okay. So like in terms of like, we put a bow on that. Okay. Good there. Let's just out of we can't leave Rabbeinu Yonah in the dust. Okay. So let's look at Rabbeinu Yonah's approach just to the second half again. So pasuk 26, and I'm not even going to read it all. I'm just going to summarize it here. So he said that the comparison to the tzaddik. I'm looking at the Dibra. Actually, I'll read it. The Dibra, not the whole thing. The Dibra Maskal, the tzaddik yitin v'lo yachsov, on the left column in the middle of the Rabbeinu Yonah. Okay, the tzaddik yitin v'lo yachsov. Limid das b'davar hazeh b'shlosh inyan. This is teaching you three things. Echad, one, by saying that the tzaddik is the opposite of the atzel. It's telling you that the tzaddik is not lazy so that he doesn't have to depend on other people. Okay, so again, he's going in the non-parasitic end of the spectrum, right? He adds net value to the system, not taking it away. As it says, so by the effort of his hands you will eat, or by the effort of your hands you will eat. You'll be praiseworthy and it'll be good for you. And one who hates gifts will live. And then that's number one. And he also adds avodas Hashem stuff. Okay, I'm going to leave that aside for now. Also, that's just going to get us into a different realm. Shenis, kasher sam alav shalom inyan hatzadik hefak mitavas ha'atzel. When Shlomo juxtaposes or makes the tzaddik the opposite of the atzel, Hodyana, he's telling us ki hatzadik alfa pi shiyasik al tanugim. He's saying that even though the tzaddik will get access to pleasures, yaniach darchei hatayva v'yitin letzdaka. He's going to forego the way of taiva and give the excess stuff to tzedakah. It says in Tehillim, all day long he's gracious and he loans. Okay, so bir ha'inyan, this means ki hatzadik yitzamtim these topic b'mida l'man teis la'aniyim ulev yonim. So what this means is like this: tzaddik can make a lot of money. Okay, like he's a tzaddik, he knows the systems, he has chachma. But with that excess money, he's not going to spend it on luxuries for himself. He's going to give it to tzedakah and just be content with what his needs are. Okay. And then number three, b'amru lo yachsoch, v'shlishish b'amru lo yachsoch, when it says he won't hold back, Hodyanu, this is telling us ki afilu nasan kama pamim bayom, even if he's given many times in the day already, lo yimna min ha'ani be'es sheyishal mimenu l'chalka l'farnaso. He will not withhold from the poor person who asks him, and he will sustain him and give him a livelihood. One who shuts his ear to the outcry of the poor, he will cry out and not be answered. So this is what I mean when I say that our approach focus on the tzaddik and his taiva life, just in terms of his pleasures. But Rabbeinu Yonah's emphasis on the tzaddik has to do with how he interacts with other people, saying that he will, what was the first thing? He will not be dependent on others, right? And he will use excess money to sustain the poor. And then even if he's already given money that day, he'll give more. So what do we see from Rabbeinu Yonah's characterization of the tzaddik, and what does that add to our pasuk? Because Rabbeinu Yonah has the same characterization of the atzel that we did, but he's taking the tzaddik in a societal realm.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question is like this: is for us, we said basically, if you wanted to summarize our approach, the atzel is in conflict because he can't get what he desires, and the tzaddik is not in conflict and has positive benefit because he can get what he desires. It's all about the tzaddik. It's all about how you relate to your own desires. Rabbeinu Yonah is saying the atzel can't get what he desires, but the tzaddik contributes to the system and is not dependent on the system and gives many times. So what is the idea by framing the tzaddik as how he interacts with the system, as opposed to how he interacts with his own desires? Yeah.
Can we go back to the Maslow's hierarchy?
Yes, I was thinking the same direction. Yeah. Okay. Good. Hierarchy of needs, and we used this one. And let's just open image. Yeah.
Right. So I think Rabbeinu Yonah is just taking it one step further, right? Whereas we were talking about that he's providing for his own needs, which is the basic needs and then psychological needs.
Yeah.
Right. And then from that then comes out the reality of self-fulfillment and like actualizing. And part of self-fulfillment is integrating with the larger system as a whole and actually contributing to it and actualizing your potential, right?
Yeah.
That's,
self-actualization.
Yeah, achieving one's full potential,
Yeah.
is how they put it. Right, which is achieving one's full potential is not then just being oriented towards yourself,
right?
But, extending and creating and making a lasting mark on the world at large.
Right. Okay, good. Yeah. And so in that sense, our approach is not at odds with Rabeinu's approach. It's just that the opposites, our approach is the more proximate opposite to the lazy person. But this is but Rabbeinu is taking it in terms of human needs. And the society fulfills the highest human need by being a part of the society and contributing to it. Yeah, and not mooching off of it. Okay, I think that's good. All right, shall we talk practicality? Or are we? I mean, we could delve more into Rabbeinu Yonah, but I'm good for today. Anyone have any preferences? Okay, let's go practicality. Okay, so the question now is shifting to what are you supposed to do if you have this problem, right? And the problem is, again, inside ego terms, that laziness is the inability to tolerate immediate pain and conflict, right? And even when there is a lure of pleasure, if he has pleasure that involves immediate pain, then he's going to choose to avoid the immediate pain rather than going for the pleasure. Okay, that's the difference between an atzel and a bal taiva. Okay, so I just want to suggest a framework here, but I'm open to ideas. The framework is, okay, so I know I talk about this all the time. Two best books on habits are Atomic Habits and Tiny Habits, and I go back and forth about which one I think is better. So I read Atomic Habits, thought that was very good. Read Tiny Habits, thought it was better. Then just recently reread Atomic Habits, and now I think it's better. They both have their advantages and disadvantages. This one is, if you're new into the habit cultivation game, this is definitely better. But if you want a system, then this one's better. Okay, so I'm going to actually frame it from Atomic Habits because I think this will be more conducive to our pasuk. So his theory is that all habits follow a 4-step pattern. Okay, cue, craving, response, reward. Okay, cue, craving, response, reward. So let's just give a couple examples just to make this real here. So I'll give an example. So as I'm giving this example, think of a habit that you already have. Okay, so I'm going to give, and habit, I mean that in the broadest term, something that you do regularly, automatically. Okay, so here's an example. Okay, every morning without fail, I put on my glasses. Okay, so how does that work? Right? So what is the cue for me to put on my glasses? Okay, waking up and not seeing. All right. So like that if I woke up and could suddenly see, I just wouldn't put on my glasses, right? But that just has never happened in my life. So I wake up and I can't see. That has that cue triggers a craving, which is I would love to be able to see. Okay. The response is I put on my glasses. And then the reward is I can now see. Okay, that's a very, very simple habit here. Okay, anyone want to venture another habit? I just want to give a couple examples just so we can have the framework here. So a habit that you already do. It could be good or bad, by the way. Good or bad habit.
I put on my socks.
You put on your socks. Okay, right. So what is the cue that leads you to put on your socks?
Well, I need to get dressed. My feet are cold and.
Okay, cold feet and need to live in society with socks. Okay, I know not everyone in the shiur like necessarily always wears socks, but okay, yeah. But so that's the cue, right? So then the craving. How would you characterize the craving? I mean, I think it's obvious. You want warm feet, right? Warm feet feels good, right? Then you respond by putting on your socks, and then you get warm feet. Okay, right. So what the Atomic Habits guy does is, and I'm going to show you this. This is especially good for lazy people. Okay, he makes a 1-page printable cheat sheet. Okay, which I actually have a paper copy of if anyone wants. Well, I only have one extra because I was talking about it with someone. So Atomic Habits cheat sheet. So this is basically a summary of the of all the sections of his book. So he, based on his theory, he has 4 categories of strategies, okay, that correspond to cue, craving, response, reward. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. So make it obvious corresponds to the cue. You want the cue to be as prominent as possible. Okay, many habits don't start because you don't have a clear cue. And if you just had a cue, then it would initiate the process, all right? Make it attractive. Has to do with the craving, that many habits are difficult to cultivate because there's actually no desire to do it. And there's only an abstract desire like, oh, I should do my homework, but there's no actual desire that you actually want, you know? So there are strategies for making it attractive. Make it easy has to do with overcoming the resistance to action, okay, the response. And then the reward increases, make it satisfying increases the reward. And then he has corresponding for bad habits, make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, and make it unsatisfying. Okay, breaking bad habits is generally going to be harder than cultivating good habits. So in our pasuk, right, with the lazy person who desires all day long and his hands refuse to act, which area does our pasuk seem to focus on? cue, craving, response, or reward.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. Our pasuk, which says that the lazy person, his desire will kill him because his hands refuse to act. All day long he desires. Where is his major problem? Is it in the cue, the craving, the response, or the reward? Or putting it differently, should he work on making it obvious, making it attractive, making it easier, making it satisfying?
I would think response.
Yes, I would think response also, right? So the whole thing is that he does crave. That's the whole puzzle, because all day long he craves, right? But his hands refuse to act. He can't, he has a hard time like responding. Okay, so let's focus on the, again, to really get this, you got to read the book, but in Make It Easy, he has 5 categories of strategies. Okay, so I'm just going to read them and then just comment on them a little bit, and then we'll translate this into practicality. So number 1, reduce friction, just decrease the number of steps between you and your good habits. Okay, so I'll give you an example of this. So one of the things that I have a long history of being horrible at is exercising, So I used to have all of these, I've tried out many different things throughout the ages of like jogging and like doing various forms of working out, The problem is that there's always too many steps between me and the thing, right? So now the way I do it is I immediately, when I get out of bed, I immediately do push-ups and sit-ups. Okay, so decreasing the number of steps. And what I do is, and this is an earlier, an earlier strategy he has, is called habit stacking or temptation bundling. Habit stacking is when you take a current habit that you already do, and then you attach a new habit to it. So after I blank, I will blank. Temptation bundling is when you want to do something and you make the new habit into a step you have to get through in order to do the thing you want. So for me, I said every morning I put on my glasses, but what I do, and there's a tremendous desire to be able to see, but what I do is I make the push-ups and sit-ups, and I had squats, but then those fell off. I got to reinitiate that habit. I don't allow myself to put on my glasses until after I have done the push-ups and sit-ups, So anyway, reduce friction. That's one strategy. Okay. If you have a personal example, I know I'm just like rushing through these, but if you have personal examples that pop to mind, then feel free to contribute. Okay. 2, prime the environment. Prepare your environment to make future actions easier. So if you arrive on the scene and then you have to set stuff up in order to do the new habit, it's going to be very, very hard. But if you set everything up ahead of time, then when you're not in conflict, then you don't have to face that when you're in the new situation. So for example, what I do is, I send out my shiur announcements every morning, right? Like on Zoom, and I do my whole, I call it tending the garden, which is the shiur announcements, the book reviews, all the stuff I post in the morning. So what I try to do is I set it up the night before, and I have a special WhatsApp group that's just me in it called Docking Bay, where I set everything up so I can just forward it and make it ready to go. So I set that up ahead of time, and then it's right there. Or let's say you had a hard time putting on your socks in the morning. So how would you prime your environment? Is put the socks out ahead of time, Yeah, okay, good. There you go, right? So, another thing is, this is a more extreme example of this is when I taught
Sleep with your socks on.
Yes, that'd be even better. Yes, never take your socks off in your life. Yeah. In what do you call it? When I have a day that's going to be an unusual schedule, I'll also schedule everything ahead of time in paper form, so I don't have to figure it out on the run. That's priming your environment. 3, master the decisive moment. This is an interesting one. I optimize the small choices that deliver outsized impact. So there are certain things that you can do, certain things, like we said, one workout is not going to make you fit, okay? But there are certain decisions where if you just force yourself to do it once, then it'll pay off in dividends. Okay, so let's say, for example, you had your, not just you, but several of you had the little notepad, use a little notepad thingy, right? So it seems like that's was that a worthwhile move? Yes, okay, good, right? So did you have to get yourself to buy it? Or did you immediately buy it as soon as you had the idea?
I bought a wrong version of it, and it wasn't as good.
Right.
I bought like the sticky notes.
Oh yeah.
And then like I would tear them off and like stick them to like my walls.
Yeah.
So I could like my to-do list, my reminders, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I looked on Amazon. We had a whole debate on what's the right one to get.
Yeah.
What's the wrong one. And then Klein found the right one, which makes my life so much easier.
Okay, good.
He bought them.
Yeah. So that ended up working out very well. But that's an example of something where all you needed to do was buy it once, right? You're not buying it every day. You buy it once and then you have it. And then this pays off in dividends to be able to,
especially because they come in two.
Ooh, even better. Yeah, exactly. Right. So this is where what Sean was talking about 2 days ago about how the lazy person, there are certain things where if you just force yourself through the initial pain, in this case, the pain of like selecting and buying, once you get yourself through that, then you'll get the result, and the result will this is the one decision that like Tim Ferriss has a statement about this. I forgot what it is. The one decision that will obviate 100 decisions. Yeah.
So like getting out of bed for showers.
Yeah, exactly. Once you get the motion going and you're out, your gears turning. I knew there was some sort of like mechanical analogy. then everything else will follow.
It's way more than the like small.
Yeah. And you only have to get out of bed once, unless you take a nap after chakras. Okay. Yeah, David.
Yeah, just another thought working alongside this. What Sean was talking about of having like that very tough initial first burst for like particularly these one-time things is, at least for myself, I have found it very helpful to have like a certain like psyching myself up energy for this one thing, particularly if I see like a greater end goal. Like this is really all it takes to get to the end goal, or even if it's not that, to have just some specific thing for that one moment, just to psych myself up, get that done, and then things like that just lowers the activation energy, and then you can go ahead from that.
Okay, that's actually a very good strategy, right? Is psyching yourself up is something that like it feels disingenuous. What's the word I'm looking for? Ingenuine, disingenuous. What's the word? It feels not genuine.
Disingenuous.
Disingenuous. Thank you. Yeah, and it is, but who cares? Like if it gets the job done. If you're disingenuous when you're in a relationship with a person, that's a big problem. If you're disingenuous with yourself, that's a big problem. But if you just need to summon up like some artificial mood in order to do one thing, that's a good, I mean, it's even like less disingenuous than a low lishma because it's only a one-time thing.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of also, right? Is you're literally like engaging in the thing to psych yourself up, or let's say, for example, the BJ Fogg's, he calls it, is a weird name for it, the Miami ritual or something like that, or Miami, which is the first habit that he cultivated for himself, which is saying verbally, today's going to be a great day, and it's artificial, like, when you first start doing it, but when you do it every day, then it actually like primes you for having a great day, so that's another thing.
Today is going to be a great day.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. There's one other thing very related to what BJ Fogg was saying there. One thing I do for myself, and has really gotten me into like a great mood and all that other what I've been thinking about recently. But what I do is every morning I'll walk outside and I just say to myself, I breathe in, I just take like a deep breath, I smile, and then I just say, there are so many great things in this world. And one thing that happens there particularly, and it's something new every day, is when I say that sentence, something quickly will pop into my mind that I find a great thing in this world. So there actually will be like a certain genuine and a renewing every single day of
that's really good.
Something that's going to get me into a great mood with that.
Nice. That's really good. Yeah. And by the way, just to reemphasize this point here, don't underestimate the power of habit stacking, because again, my morning ritual involves the getting out of bed, which I do every morning. That leads to the micro workout, which then later on is going to lead to the, this is not actually like directly sequenced because I do have time in between, but I have two pairs of glasses. Okay. I have my inferior pair of glasses, which doesn't have the blue light blockers, which I don't know if that matters or whatever, but I have, and then I have my correct prescription, which helps me to see everything sharper. So what I do is while I'm doing my morning reading, I have the happy light on, which is like light therapy stuff to like counteract the seasonal affective disorder and to like reset your circadian rhythm. What was that? It's like a sunlight. It doesn't have all the qualities of like the ultraviolet, stuff, but it's bright light, So I do my reading then, but then what I do is I have my coffee, and then I time the putting on the glasses with the caffeine kicking in, saying today's going to be a great day, and then immediately doing the I'm excited thing, So it just like, if you make these chains, you just have like this epic morning, and then it ends up being really good. Yeah.
All right. So what about, I'm sure I haven't read the full Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
But, in terms of keeping it consistent, so there's like this idea where if you, let's say, getting up for chakras every day, right? That's just an example. But for circumstances outside of your control, you miss one day, and then it could totally.
Okay, good. So he has a nice rule here, which is this has served me very well. Is the rule is don't miss twice. Okay, and what that does is you have this problem of like you miss and then you give up the whole thing, right? And then unseats the entire thing, right? Now, when he says don't miss twice, it's lav davka twice, but twice is a good amount, which is you can allow yourself to have an off day and then just get back into the routine. Yeah, you have a thing?
Nope.
No? Okay.
This is an actual off day.
not an example for the.
No.
Okay, fine. So I think I found that like giving yourself that wiggle room is a very, very useful tool because first of all, it allows you to be forgiving with yourself. Secondly, and that's a good media to have in general, like, okay, I didn't do it. Like, I'm not a failure, it also allows you to have breathing space to then say, okay, I just I'll do this. I just can't do it right now. And something about the options, like I'll give it an example, which is not exactly like missing twice, but I've said this before, but I'll say it again, is, I used to try out when I was first in yeshiva, I used to try out different like yomi programs, never daf yomi, but like one, that's too much. One of them I would try is Rambam yomi, so I would try doing a parak of Rambam a day. Problem is you miss one parak and now you're 2 parakim behind, and then you miss another parak and you're 3 parakim behind, and then you give up the whole thing, right? So I made a routine that I did, which I didn't even know that habit stacking was a thing, but this is what I did, is I said, after Shacharis, I'm going to learn either 2 halachos, a half parak, or a whole parak. And I'm going to give myself that choice every day, So what would happen is, I would want to do a full parak, but then there'd be many days where I'd be like, that's too much, but I could at least do 2 halachos. And 2 halachos was totally manageable, And then sometimes I would start doing the 2 halachos and then be like, well, you know what? I'm really interested in this. I'll do the half parak. And sometimes I'd be like, oh, the parak's really short. I'll just do the whole parak. So giving yourself that wiggle room allows you to it gives you like a safety net to be able to maintain some form of the habit, even if it's not the pristine, perfect version. And then you can go on. So missing, I think, is okay with that. And if you miss too many days in a row, that just might mean that your habit is too ambitious. And then you have to recalibrate your habit. Yeah.
So
does that answer your question?
Yeah. I was thinking in terms of I'll give an example quickly.
Yeah.
I, for example, pretty consistent with chakras.
Yeah.
Got COVID, was sick in bed for 3 days.
That'll do it.
Yeah. And then they kind of just started becoming flaky after that. So those were circumstances outside my control.
Right. Yeah.
And then it kind of just
right. So that actually does happen to be a good opportunity to so your habit did work.
Yeah. It
right.
Worked.
And then you just needed it to be restarted. So doing something to master the decisive moment to help you overcome that hurdle to restart, whether it be some psyching yourself up or making an accountability system with someone else, let's say making the minion or whatever. There are techniques you could do, but those are overcoming the hurdle techniques, not setting up a consistent thing because the consistent thing works. Right. Yeah. Okay. Next one is use the 2-minute rule. Downscale your habits until they can be done in 2 minutes or less. So that's kind of the foundation of tiny habits, which is you take the habit you want and you shrink it into the smallest possible form. And then you start doing the small form of it to get yourself into that habit. And then you scale it up as necessary. So the example that I think this is used in Atomic Habits, that there was a guy who wanted to actually, no, I'll use the tiny habits version. The guy who wanted to jog. Okay. So, ideally, I think he wanted to jog half an hour every day. Right. What's the smallest form of starting that habit? Smaller.
Crawling.
Putting on your shoes, right? So for a week, I think it was a week, maybe 2 weeks, he would get up, put on his jogging shoes, and then take them off again. And that's it. Okay. Then putting his jogging shoes, I don't know, going for a walk, whatever, and then scaling it up. The way I did this with my mom has this, among the things she collects, we'll call it, is she doesn't throw out magazines. Okay. So we've got like tons of like old magazines and stuff, So, and she always wants to like declutter the house. And so this is during the summer that I read Tiny Habits. So I said so she was saying how, she had a negative view about changing your habits. She's like, you can't just like change your habits with a method. And I said, oh no. So I said, you want to bet? So I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to set a habit. So she had a big shelf of magazines outside of her bedroom. Okay. So I said, what's the one thing you do every day is I didn't go over the formula. So the basic formula of Tiny Habits is ABC, which stands for, let me see if he has a graphic here. Yeah, anchor, behavior, celebration. Okay, anchor is another word for cue, something that you already do. Behavior is the tiny version of the habit that you wish to cultivate. And then celebration is a key one, which is you have to do something right afterwards that gives you some sort of dopamine rush. Okay, so whether it is like saying, so for him, he says, yeah, and it could be something that makes you feel stupid, but it could be like making a little trumpet fanfare in your head. It could be smiling, it could be like anything that just gives you a little dopamine rush. So with my mom, I said, what's one thing you do every morning? She leaves her bedroom. Okay, so that's the anchoring behavior. What's the tiniest version of the habit of getting rid of magazines? Pick one up and throw it away. Okay, and then the third. Oh yeah, you could do it tinier, right? So I figured pick one up and throw it away. And then the celebration was, I would always have been up for my mom is a late riser, is high five, right? So she would get up, take one magazine, throw it away, and then high five me. And then when I came back to New York after the summer, then I set up one of my childhood stuffed animals that she high fives instead. And then we scaled it up to the next week, 2 magazines, then 3, then 4, then 5. And then no magazines on that shelf. Yeah. Then we got to restart it for another shelf, So this is his version, which I think is what James Clear was doing with the 2-minute rule of you downscale it to make it so easy that it's hard to justify not doing, So for the lazy person who wants to avoid immediate pain and conflict, just find some version of it with so little conflict that like you can do that little thing. And once you get, this has the in of once you get started, you could build upon it and build upon it in smaller doses, Yeah.
I think it's also important to recognize which of the 4 tendencies you fall into. So this is something I've been into recently.
Okay, sure.
What really motivates you and pushes you towards your goals? Mm-hmm. Is it either internal forces, external forces, both, or neither?
Okay,
so
interesting.
There are 4 of them, and something like interesting.
Okay, that's really interesting. I want to think about that in conjunction with both of these systems because I think they new things.
Like let's say you only are motivated by like external factors. Yeah. So like if you make a goal for yourself internally, it won't do anything. You have to like tell someone like this is my goal.
Right.
So in that case, it might be a little bit different.
Yeah.
Someone who isn't affected by external.
That's good. I think that's good. That reminds me of the other book in habit stuff is a switch. How to make difficult change. How to make change when change is difficult, and that's the metaphor of the rider, the elephant in the path. About there's intellect-based strategies, emotion-based strategies, and then environment-based strategies. Which I feel like is more similar to what you're saying than these things are similar. But I think good thing to think about. And then the last one is automate your habits, invest in technology and one-time purchases that lock in future behavior, which I guess is technically speaking more of what what that is. But that's another thing is the what do you call it? Setting alarms. I'm a big alarm guy, of like setting alarms to remind me to do stuff, and I just don't have to think about it, and it's just automated. And again, so much of this is like if all of the onus is upon you to trigger and maintain all the changes, that's a lot of instant conflict. But I'll tell you what, setting an alarm for a minute before shiur ends every day, I just had to do that once, and then it does it for me. I don't have to have any conflict in like remembering to like summarize stuff from shiur, So speaking of which, let's summarize our what we got for the pasuk, which was that so I'm going to use our approach here. So the Atzel it has 3 layers of pain. The pain of not getting what he desires, the pain of Mishlei, lazy impotence, of not being able to control his actions, and then the pain of being a person whose desires are inaccessible. Well, I guess the pain of inaccessible desires and being a person whose desires are inaccessible. I think there's an ego pain also. Tzaddik is the opposite in all regards. He gets what he desires. He can act swiftly without conflict, and he fully actualizes himself not only in terms of his own needs, but in terms of his being a component of the society. Okay, good. All right, that was a very fruitful couplet of pesukim, I think. Nice. Okay, yeah, thanks. So tomorrow, I'm staying on, Isaac. I'm turning off the recording because you wanted to say something.